All right, Student Senate. I now call this meeting of the Kansas State University Student Senate to order. Will you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now move into roll call.
Adams.
Here.
Albers.
Here.
Armstrong. Arnoldi.
Here.
Belk. Bergston.
Here.
Bolar. Bothwell.
Here.
Bowen. Brown.
Here.
Carpenter. Cole. DeMoranville.
Here.
Dunfield.
Here.
Esses. Filbert. Gammon.
Here.
Grover.
Here.
Gupta.
Here.
Hammond.
Here.
Harp.
Here.
Heatherman.
Here.
Hildreth.
Here.
Huffman.
Here.
Javin.
Here.
Carmali. Kidd. King. Kulkarni.
Here.
Leverett. Mari.
Here.
Morgan.
Here.
Neatery.
Here.
Orth.
Here.
Orzakowski.
Here.
Pelton.
Here.
Penny.
Here.
Porter. Riffle.
Here.
Roman.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Spellman.
Here.
Spencer. Sullivan.
Here.
Tile.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Chumlin.
Here.
Wessel.
Here.
Wilhelm.
Here.
Whitmer. Yogunadun.
Here.
Boyd.
Here.
Clark. Cruz. Gertson.
Here.
Jennings.
Here.
Pick.
Here.
Lundeen. Marshall.
Here.
McIntosh.
Here.
McKenzie.
Here.
Minu. Pasteur. Sedlacek.
Here.
Tuttle. Underwood. Valdez. And Works.
Here.
All right, there are 36 senators present, 8 excused, and 7 absent.
All right, with that, we will now move into first open period. Our first open period speaker this evening is Charles Tabor, our Provost and Executive Vice President.
I'll just yell, or I have it on now. So first, I want to just thank you for the work that you do with in student leadership. This is so important to the university, and I really appreciate it. And as I'll say in a minute, it's actually one of the really special characteristics of Kansas State University that I'm seeing with fresh eyes as an outsider coming in. I'm really just finishing my second month on the job, so I'm pretty new here. What I thought I'd do, since I really have only met a few of you, is talk a little bit about myself, tell you a bit about my background, and then move into my priorities for the coming year at Kansas State. So I'm a political scientist. I've been a professor of political science for almost 30 years before coming here. I'm a professor of political science here, and I intend to continue to teach, so I really hope that I may see some of you in the classroom. My specialty is mass political behavior, so public opinion, political psychology, campaigns, things like that. So it's actually kind of a cool time right now for someone like me. I really enjoy watching the political process and studying that. My personal background is a little unusual, so I'll tell you about that. I actually was born in Central Africa and lived my first 16 years in various countries of West and Central Africa. Didn't come to the U.S. until I was 16 and came to Tennessee when I came. So I lived in East Tennessee for the end of my high school years and then went to East Tennessee State University, the local school. When I finished there, I went on to graduate school at the University of Illinois, where I did my graduate work in political science. I actually combined psychology, political science, and computer science. And so a lot of my work is computational, so doing like computer simulations of political systems, things like that. So anyway, that's my sort of academic background. I went to Stony Brook University in New York out of graduate school and ended up staying there for 29 years. It was a sort of an unusual place for me to go coming out of graduate school, but it attracted me because they had a really great political science department that I could be part of and move through. But I have to be honest, that university sort of changed in character in the 29 years that I was there. And so when the time came that my youngest child went off to college and I was a little freer, my wife and I were a little freer to think about other opportunities, we really wanted to change the type of university that we were at. So Stony Brook shifted from being a university that really was focused on serving the New York metro community, which is something I really thought was cool. It was a very service-oriented university when I arrived. A lot of students coming through that needed a lot of financial aid, a lot of first-generation students, a lot of immigrant students from the New York area. That was sort of the character of the university when I arrived. By the time I left, Stony Brook had a wonderful sort of rise in status, which in many ways was great. It had become a member of what's called the AAU, which is one of the top organizations of American universities. But it lost something in that rise, and I've spoken with Dr. Bosco about this a bit. What it lost was really some of the character of a connection to the community, the service that it once had. And so I was really looking for a university that had that spirit. And actually, when I interviewed here, I came in a couple days early and walked around town and talked to people, talked to a few students who were working in town. And I really got the sense that this was a place where service to the community was a part of the core value of the university. Obviously, it's part of the mission as a land-grant university, but I wanted to make sure that it was genuine. And so that it really was. K-State family really means something here. And I see it in all the talks I've had with students. That's one of the really major things that just jumps out at you is the way that students have a powerful sense of service, a sense of belonging to something bigger than themselves here at the university. I think that's an amazing thing. And so that's one of the reasons this was an attractive university to me, and I'm so excited about being here because we can build on that and continue to do some really great things. So let me turn to initiatives and priorities for the coming year. So I think all of you know that we have two gigantic changes on campus that I'm in the thick of. One of them, and I'm partnering with Dr. Bosco on this, is strategic enrollment management. This is a major shift in a lot of the ways that we do enrollment management, everything from recruiting of students through student success initiatives, all the way through to graduation. It's the whole student life cycle. And actually, it's even, cultivating future alums. So it's the whole engagement with the university. And how do we do that? And one of the things that I think we're working on together is to really get the academic side and the student life side aligned, working together as one to really make this the best destination for students and give students the best possible opportunities here. Now, within that initiative, there are some important changes, some important ways in which we're doing business. We're becoming much more data-driven. We're becoming very strategic in how we look at the way we send messages out, and we're also shifting the way in which we do financial aid. So there's a lot of sort of interesting things that are going on, and I think it's really going to be great for the university going forward. The second big initiative is this budget initiative, and probably I may be the only person on campus that thinks this is interesting and exciting. I'm a budget nerd, but I really enjoy thinking about this. And we're shifting from a way of budgeting that it's called an incremental model, where you sort of everybody just gets what they got last year, plus or minus a little bit. That kind of a budgeting approach has the benefit of certainty. You kind of know what you're going to get because it's what you've always gotten. It has the defect of not being very responsive or flexible to changes in the environment. So we're shifting to a different kind of budgeting that is much more responsive. Be happy to answer questions about it, but I won't go into any more of the grisly details for you right now. The other, those are the two big initiatives that are consuming most of my time right now, but I have other priorities that are really important to me. Diversity and inclusion is a key core value of mine that I really want to continue to work on here. So expect me to be working with others on that, and hope to work with you. And I'll just say that actually connects very deeply to my own personal background, because I first became interested in the issues of diversity and inclusion because of the inequality that I observed in West and Central Africa growing up, and the connection that I saw between that and conflict. So areas where there's a lot of inequality, whether it's social, political, whatever, it tends to generate a lot of conflict. I lived through 6 coups. These political coups are situations where people rise up and throw a government out violently, and that happens when you have a lot of political inequality. And economic and social inequality. So that led me to worry and think a lot about social justice and how do you have a fair society. Some other issues I'm really interested in, student success, which is of course part of strategic enrollment management, but it's really everything. From having adequate courses, so we offer enough sections so that students can make good progress, to being able to fashion our financial aid so that we are ensuring that students don't fall out of financial aid because perhaps the criteria for continuing financial aid are too strict. Or there's a lot of sort of things that we can do here. Late stage financial aid. I mean, to me, one of the worst disasters you can have at a university is when somebody gets all the way through almost to the finish line and then can't complete because they need some additional financial aid. And so these are things that there's already ways in which we can serve students at that point, but I want to really look at that and see what sort of late stage financial aid we can offer to students to get them across the finish line. Last thing I'll mention before I let you ask me questions is I do think we really need to do something about faculty and staff compensation. So I don't know if you've looked at the numbers, but we are well below our peers. We're not competitive with our peers, and we're going to continue to lose excellent faculty and staff over time if we don't find a way to increase faculty staff compensation. There are lots of other things. The university is a complex place with lots of priorities, but those are some that are really on my mind these days. Let me let you ask me questions now. Do I have any time left?
Yes, you do.
I do. Awesome.
All right, with that, are there any questions for our speaker? Director Sedlacek.
Provost Taber, thank you for coming and speaking to us this evening. My question is with regards to the new budget model. So with it being as responsive as it's hoping to be, how will that affect the cost of, or the direct cost out of the pockets of students?
The budget model itself is not going to have any direct impact on costs. Those will be decisions that will have to be made, and of course we have a well-developed process here, which actually is unlike any university I've ever seen in terms of the ways in which students have input into the tuition and fees process. I think that's fantastic. But the budget model itself is not going to have any direct impact on tuition. Okay. The budget model is all about how do we allocate the resources we have. Okay. So it's designed, I mean, just very quickly, it's designed to drive resources to areas that have increasing enrollment. Okay. So areas that are able to increase their enrollment one way or another, that's picked up in the metrics in the model, and then it drives additional resources their way.
All right, are there any more questions for our speaker? Coordinator Bothwell.
This isn't as heavy of a question. I'm a political science major. I was curious what classes you were planning on teaching.
Well, so I would really like to, and I have to talk with the chair of political science to see what they feel they need. I would like to teach a class in political psychology, which is, that's really the field that I specifically work in. So how do people think about politics? How do they arrive at the views that they have? Why do they like this candidate rather than that candidate? And all wrapped up in that is also how do you manipulate psychology? So in campaigning, you're trying to change people's minds, so you design campaign ads and all of that in order to try to sway people. So that's one, and I more generally public opinion. So work on public opinion. Yeah.
All right, further questions? Senator Brown.
Hello. So for the strategic enrollment and student success that you were mentioning, I was wondering if you had any areas for student feedback or involvement with that.
Absolutely. We just had a meeting earlier today about how to design that. And as you may know, there's been some back and forth about how to get that going. I think we have an agreement now that's absolutely perfect. There's going to be a student on every task force, at least one. There probably will be multiple students on some of the task forces there, especially ones where, for example, one of the task forces deals with international, global, and graduate students all in one task force. It would make sense to have one of each of those types of students on that task force. There's also going to be an advisory committee that will be composed of lots of students that will be sort of providing input and feedback on ideas as they work through the process.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great.
Further questions? Director Boyd.
With the increase of your goal to increase the ability to pay staff and faculty more, how are you going to ensure that there aren't increased costs to the students with that goal?
Well, so I mean, I can't guarantee there won't be increased costs to students. So there's going to be, at some point, we're going to have to decide how, what is the appropriate compensation for faculty and staff, and then we're going to have to figure out how to pay for it. Okay, so a university basically has these sources of revenue. You've got state allocation, and we will do everything we can to increase state allocation because, of course, the big issue, if you look at trends in higher ed, not a Kansas thing in particular, is that states, governments have provided less and less allocation. And so we've had to shift the cost of education into other sources of income, one of which is tuition, right? So how do you do that? There's really two ways to increase the revenue coming in with tuition. One is to increase the tuition itself, and the other is to increase enrollment. So find ways to get more students. If you can increase enrollment, and that's really the big goal of the strategic enrollment management plan, is to increase enrollment, then that can alleviate the need to increase tuition. So that's, of course, one of our big goals, right? And so I can't give you a guarantee that we won't ultimately have to raise tuition at some point, but I can tell you that it's the goal of all of us working in it to keep tuition as low as we possibly can within our needs. Yeah. The other source of income, which K-State is really fantastic at, is donors, philanthropy, right? So that's something that's really been growing over the last few years, and it's also a great source of student support through scholarships that are created by donors.
All right, further questions? Chair Penny?
Thank you for coming and speaking to us. With all the changes with the budget models and the different projects that you're pushing, how do you foresee those scholarships changing with needs versus academic base, such as some of the changes that have already happened with the Putnam going down and different things happening? And how do you see students' voice being put into those changes?
So students will be part of the task forces that are considering this, and then the advisory group will be, consulted on the changes that we want to make. The philosophy that we're going to move for is to provide a variety of financial support options. So, we're going to provide more need-based aid than we have in the past. There's no question about that. We're going to do it both in-state and out-of-state, so more need-based aid. And that's right in our mission. I mean, we need to be providing financial support for all members of our community. But we're also going to, we need to continue to provide merit-based aid, so that will continue. The Putnam itself is gone away. We've created sort of a replacement new scholarship. But everything we're doing right now is just this year, and we're planning now for the longer term strategy of financial aid. Can't tell you exactly what that'll be, but it's going to be a mix, and there will be more need-based than ever before.
Time for questions has expired. Is there a motion to extend? All right. If not, thank you very much for coming tonight, Provost Tabor.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker for first open period will be Pat Bosco, our Vice President for Student Life and Dean of Students.
Give it up for Dr. Tabor. The history of this room is really second to none. You need to understand that your legacy created childcare on our campus when no one really cared about childcare, a library when no one was really coming forth for a new library about 20 years ago. You championed our University Success Center. We've done things like the recreation complex, our commitment to need-based scholarships. Think about your input in a variety of academic and student life initiatives. There simply isn't a group in America that rolls up its sleeves and helps us solve problems like Student Senate or SGA. When I talk about student government, though, I'm much broader. It's our commitment to how we run our residence halls, university committees, how we deal with task forces, the selection of deans and presidents and provosts, that you're in the mix, you're in the main game. And it's important that it's the way we, as it's been mentioned earlier, the culture of our school. So I genuinely applaud your work, not only on Thursday nights, but throughout the academic year, throughout the summer, as you work on college councils, as you serve as ambassadors, as you strengthen our residence halls, our fraternity sororities, our student organizations, and our commitment to the student voice. I'll go ahead and answer any questions you have about stuff. As we think about the facilities within student life, we've championed four major areas over the last couple of years. A new welcome center, a $20 million privately funded facility to combine our career center with our new student services program. Weefeld Hall and Kramer, which are state-of-the-art residence halls and food service operation, and the student union. 3 unique projects. In addition, we had the Jardine project going on almost simultaneously. All 3 of those projects, and really Jardine, were all driven by students and student voice. As we think about our next few projects within student life, the Multicultural Student Center, as announced a few days ago, the Derby Food Center, we're renovating the DER, $17 million renovation on Derby, which will start in May, and also we'll continue to work on the Jardine project as we go. As we think in terms of diversity, you've seen a lot of major initiatives in that area the last year. You've championed that. You've kept us accountable, and I greatly appreciate your willingness to help us in those endeavors. As we think in terms of what the provost was talking about, let's make sure that we understand, talking about student success, it is the traditional student who comes directly from a Kansas high school or an out-of-state high school to our university. That's one segment. We rely too much on focusing on Kansas high school graduating seniors. We've done a remarkable job. You're many products of those Kansas high schools. We remain the #1 choice among Kansas high school graduating seniors. But we're finding that we need to go broader. We need to be aggressive and global, international students. We need to be interested in transfer students, and we need to expand our out-of-state markets. In the state of Kansas, something phenomenal has happened. High school enrollments in the state of Kansas have really gone up. More students are graduating from Kansas high school than ever before. That's good news. However, in the last 6 years, we've gone from 85% post-secondary participation in the state of Kansas. 85% of students who graduated from Kansas high schools were going on to VOTEC schools, 2-year schools, or 4-year schools. This fall, 70% went up. So that is a tremendous change in the demographics of our state. So yes, during this time, we've remained the #1 choice among Kansas high school graduating seniors, the largest market share of any school in the state, but it's a dwindling pool. Also, you'd like to think that more students went to community colleges. That's not the case. Almost 3,000 students fewer 3 years ago than today are going to Kansas community colleges. That means transfer enrollment is going to be affected because that pool is smaller. As we think in terms of international students, we've lost 600 international students, a critical part of the culture of our school and the history of our school. With international students, both undergraduate and graduate students, that's 600 students that we've lost over the last 4 years. A remarkable impact, not only on the finances, but on the very fabric of our school. And then we think about the entrepreneurial spirit. Good question about tuition and fees being affected by the new budget model. I would say that it's important that we have an entrepreneurial spirit with our faculty, department heads, deans, that we think about how can we be not only more efficient, but more responsive to an ever-changing marketplace. What kinds of things can we bring into the curriculum to make us even more cutting edge than we are? How can we make sure that our undergraduate and our graduate programs are meeting the workforce needs of our state, the region, the country, and the world? And we want to make sure that any kind of a budget model we come up with is entrepreneurial, that faculty are busy, many of them are world-class scholars. How can we make sure that they're incentivized to do what needs to be done for the future of our state, our country, and the world? That's what land-grant mission is all about. So part of that budget model, and look for it, is the incentives for us to be innovative, for us to be even more cutting edge than we ever have been before. I think that's the excitement of the new budget model. It gives us a chance to do that, where departments and colleges will be awarded by increasing enrollment within their specific areas of study, and also be incentivized to come up with new exciting ways to meet the workforce needs of our state, region, and the country. With that, let me stop and answer any questions you may have about anything at all. Anything at all? Is that okay?
Are there any questions for our speaker?
Yes, yes.
Could you maybe talk about, I don't know if you can or not, about the exact placement of the Multicultural Center compared to other maybe places it could have gone? Or
Yes,
gone?
yes. I'll go ahead and give you a feel for it. We had 28 member committee that worked under the leadership of Adrian Rodriguez for about 3 months over the summer that really worked to take the committee that was formed a year ago, May, to put together a framework of where we can, what kinds of things we can do in a philosophical way to make a multicultural center happen. So we had a group that was chaired by Dr. Choma, Dr. Mary Toller, and also Brian Davis that worked for about 4 months a year ago. We took that report and put meat on the bones. For example, location, what actually would go into a facility, and what wouldn't go into a facility. What came out of that is a student-centered facility that maximizes current needs as well as future needs of our multicultural students, and really, frankly, the entire student body. 14,300 square feet that will be located on the east side of our student union. A space that in 1999 we had proposed to build an addition on the student union. It's prime space on the campus. One of the prime recommendations made by the previous group was that we have a central location and that we have a private entrance to the campus. This recommendation does that. So there was about a dozen or so, some of you were on the committee that studied over the summer, about a dozen locations. We looked at Memorial Stadium, about 12,000 square feet on the west side of Memorial Stadium that's unfinished. We looked at the Ecumenical Christian Ministry building, which is just off the campus on Denison. I said that right, on Denison. We also looked at property adjacent to the Leadership Studies, property adjacent to the International Student Center. We looked at Holtz Hall and renovating Holtz Hall. We also looked at leisure and a couple of other places to try to come up with a real analysis of what would be best for our current as well as our future needs. We decided unanimously to go with the space east of the student union. Now, the next phase is for us to actually work on the schematic drawings, the square footage of what's needed inside the facility. The Welcome Center, which some of you helped me with the campus tours and student services. That facility we organized and developed and designed by focus groups, prospective students, current students, parents, and the like. And then they went away, and we went ahead and worked with the architects that made it happen. Weefald Hall, Weefald and Kramer Food Center, we had focus groups, but then the architects went ahead and did their work. We designed the student union. It was all done by students. Student run, student initiated. Students decided what this room would look like, what the floor would look like. The power cat in the floor of the courtyard. What kinds of fabric we have throughout the facility, as well as the food service operation in our facility. That's going to be the kind of feel with the Multicultural Student Center. That the next phase is for us to sit down with our students and look at what specifically the feel of the building, the culture of the building. We want to make sure that the Multicultural Student Center has a feel different than any other building on campus. And the fact that it's located in the spot that we've selected gives us a chance every day to have campus tours go into a gathering space and to speak toward diversity and commitment to equity and inclusion on our campus. That's how we begin to change behavior of all of our students. From the very moment they step on campus, they get a feel for what we're all about. That's why that location is important. As well as being centered around student success programs like the tutoring center, like the public campus, like financial aid, and our academic coaching program, as well as our honors program. Other questions about anything at all?
Further questions? Director McKenzie.
Hi, Dr. Bosco. Thank you for coming. Could you speak to the factors driving the reduction in the number of international students that we're getting?
I'm sorry, McKenzie, I didn't hear you. Go ahead, would you say it again, please?
Oh, could you speak to the factors driving the reduction in the number of international students we're getting?
Excellent.
And what initiatives do you think we could undertake to improve it?
Thank you. We have gone from a record number of international students. Let me go back up. 10 years ago, we had less than 1,000 international students in state, and they were basically graduate students. We went from 1,000 students from 100 different countries that were basically graduate students to 2,400 to 2,300 international students that were primarily undergraduates, and we flourished in a lot of wonderful ways. Some things happened over the last 4 years that changed the mix. Number one is the competition from other universities. Second, economy, some of the countries that we were attracting students. Third, the political climate in America. That we have a situation where some of our students don't feel welcome here. And that's had a tremendous effect on our ability to attract and retain students. I heard yesterday that one of our countries, several of our students, will be asked to return in December because of the decisions been made by our government. So those are three factors that affect us. We're down 600. You think about the fact that that's a lot of students from a lot of different countries that bring a tremendous amount of value to our, not only our school, but our community and our state and our country. We have a consultant who's working on several areas for us to work to be able to develop programs, and that's a task force that is just starting now to be able to work with our consultants about new ways we can retain or attract international students. And we're not alone. International student enrollments are down nationwide. So each time we ask our consultants, well, what can we do? It's, well, we'll develop a plan, and we're waiting for that. And as the provost mentioned, we have a task force that's just beginning now. We'll have students on there to come up with a better way, a better mousetrap that that we can respond to increasing our international student enrollment, which is very important for us. A lot of reasons. Other questions?
Further questions? Chair Spellman.
My question pertains to the cost of this project. So it was originally $16 million. I was wondering if you could explain.
Which one?
It was originally $16 million.
16.
Sorry?
What project?
For the Multicultural Student Center,
Okay.
sorry. I was wondering if you could kind of clarify why it was lowered down to $5 million.
If I met with you and said, let's dream, you'd come up with all kinds of things that could happen. And I'm not being critical. I'm just saying that there was a process that was respected by a whole bunch of people that said, let's start with a blank slate and let's dream of what could happen. I characterize it as maybe sitting down with my family and saying, where would you like to go on vacation? You can go anywhere. Well, and then all kinds of suggestions come out and say, well, no, really, we can't do that. We don't have the time, the money, all the realities set in. The process was not followed to gain central administration's ownership, and it was better for us to be able to stop and say, okay, let's collectively find out what do we really need, and how does that meet today's needs as well as our future needs. And we brought in a consultant that worked with our group over the summer to actually go need for need. What do we need? And we backed into the square footage and the location. So the task force that I mentioned earlier, a year ago, was chaired by Dr. Kamafi, Dr. Toller, and Brian Davis. That group honored that project that was done about 5 years ago. They took many of the ingredients from that project and put in a framework. This group went ahead and made that work for us in terms of a realistic plan. For example, a production kitchen. That's central to the Multicultural Student Center. It was in the original plan, and it's been followed all the way through. We don't have a production kitchen here in the Union. I got out of the production kitchen business. Remember, meals are being brought in the facility. We have catered. We no longer cook in the facility, in the Union. We're going to have a production kitchen in the Multicultural Student Center. Storage for over 50 or so of our multicultural groups was back in the original dream in the planning group, and then again we've got that in our plan. The space for student organizations to huddle, a welcoming environment, the cultural aspects are all part of the plan. Now, I honor the work that had been done a number of years ago, but now we're looking at what we really need and also what can be raised. Because we can't have a facility that is going to be student fee generated. It raises costs. We said right from the beginning that this facility was going to be privately funded. And now we have a plan to do that. We've raised just about $4.2 million. And the estimate of the square footage that was agreed upon from our looking need for need, current as well as future, we think we can raise $5.5 million in that. And foundation staff are working on a timetable to make that happen. And that was announced, I think,
Time for questions has expired. Is there a motion to extend? All right, if not, thank you very much for coming tonight. Our next speaker for first open period will be Gretchen Cummings. She is the lead for Mental Health Awareness Week.
Hi guys, my name is Gretchen. I won't necessarily call me the lead of Mental Health Awareness Week. That's low. So with Mental Health Awareness Week, this week there's also the game. And it's a push toward mental health awareness for the game as well. And that, I've realized talking to students and even faculty, like no one really knows that. And it is a big deal with homecoming and everything that's going on with that. So I'm trying to make it more of like a known thing. There's actually a family coming over from Kansas City. They lost their son about 1.5 years ago to suicide. He's a graduate from K-State. He graduated with an engineering degree. He was part of K-State athletics. He was part of the Greek system. He was in countless clubs. Really well-known guy across campus, and so just like really hit their family really hard. And they really turned to the K-State family after that. They're a huge K-State family, and they reached out with Bill Snyder and talked to him about it. So K-State athletics is on board, making it a mental health awareness game. So back in Kansas City, they call it Carl's Cause. Carl was their son that they lost. And at all their events, they wear green ribbons or hand out green bracelets. And so with their charter bus coming over, they have a tailgate actually for the game. And the information for that was actually sent out in the K-State Today email. I saw that on there, so if you want information on that, go check it out. But just from the student side, I just wanted to make that more known. So I've been making these green ribbons for the last 1.5 weeks. And I have some here in a bag. I'll leave some on the back if you guys want to just grab one. I'm asking people just to wear them to the game. Grab 2, give one to a friend. I'm trying to get them kind of across campus. And their family doesn't know I'm doing this, so I'm really hoping that they come in and see all the green ribbons and really feel our support. So that'd be really cool.
All right, with that, are there any questions for our speaker? Coordinator Bothwell.
Are you going to be passing any out at the game on Saturday, for students who may not have any by that time?
So I haven't really worked with anything with K-State athletics. This is just kind of something I've been doing. I know I'm going to be bringing my school of ribbon to their tailgate, and they're opening it up to anyone, so anyone that wants to stop by. They're making buttons and handing out all ribbons and bracelets and that kind of thing. So.
Further questions? Director Sedlacek.
Do you know if with the pins that are holding the ribbons in place, that those will be allowed into the stadium?
I think it is.
Sincere question, like I just, yeah, is that?
I don't think you can impale anybody with a safety pin.
I would assume, I'm just curious if anyone knows the answer.
I think we're good.
I don't. They understood that they were making buttons for people to wear, so I kind of went along with that line.
All right. Are there any more questions for our speaker tonight? All right. If not, thank you so much for coming tonight. Our next speakers for first open period will be Ellie Light and Amber Helwig. They are the transfer student ambassadors.
So Amber had to leave, so I brought up Lydia. We'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. So my name's Ellie. I work as a transfer ambassador as well as like a student ambassador in new student services.
And I'm Lydia Barnhart. I'm the coordinator at Special Populations Recruitment for New Student Services. So I work with our transfer military non-traditional students.
Yeah, so we're just going to talk to you guys a little bit about National Transfer Student Week. So that is this upcoming week, the 15th through the 19th. And it's put on by National Institute for the Study of Transfer Students. Is anyone a transfer student here? Yay! Does anyone know a transfer student here? Oh, yeah, everyone knows transfer students. We're all over the place. So, why do they put this on? It supports transfer student success through education, research, and advocacy. Some of the research areas include transfer credit, state policies, equity among transfer students. NISTS also partners with four-year universities, two-year colleges, as well as state agencies, higher education associations, and others committed to transfer student success. So there's not a whole lot of research on transfer students. It's kind of a newer field of study. So the fact that they're able to gather research now is really awesome. But yeah, the purpose of this is just to kind of celebrate transfer students and also the professionals who support them. But what? Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, just transfer students come in a variety of forms. Not all are community college transfer students. A lot of our transfer students are coming from four-year institutions. And so just really kind of getting the awareness out there that a fourth of our student population is made up of transfer students and that they're coming from all different places. And so we're really excited for this upcoming week, and I think Ellie's going to talk about some of the activities that we have going on.
So I did want to mention that at K-State, in case you didn't know, we do offer scholarships and leadership positions specific to transfer students. So transfer ambassadors, which is what I'm a part of, actively helps in the recruitment process of transfer students. We write cards, we make phone calls, we do campus tours, and help out with transfer-related events to kind of help with the transfer experience and make sure that goes as smoothly as possible for prospective students. So some of our activities this next week, we have Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, we will be at the table outside of the cat stand handing out buttons. So I hope you guys all stop by. We actually have two types of buttons. So one says I was a transfer student, so Caleb, there you go. And then everyone else can sport one that just says I love transfer students. I think it has like a heart and a power cat in it. They look really awesome. They just came in today, so yeah, you can share your love for Caleb. So that's really awesome. So definitely stop by and grab a button and just chat with us. And then we'll be
passing out buttons to faculty and staff.
Yeah, we are. So, well, faculty and staff will have them as well. And we will be in the union from noon to 2, handing out those buttons. So definitely stop by. Tuesday, we will have a Facebook Live. So if you know any prospective transfer students that are at community colleges right now, tell them to tune into that because we will be answering questions. So that'll be a really good resource. And then also Wednesday night, we have a scavenger hunt that Transfer Ambassadors is hosting for Transfer Student Association, which is like casual social organization on campus, and it's at 8 p.m. No, 6 p.m. at Bosco Plaza, and then we're all going to go to the volleyball game after because we are playing KU that night. So feel free to come along. It's not just for transfer students, it's for anyone, and there will be prizes. And that's pretty much it for the week's activities. We are still looking for volunteers for the scavenger hunt, so if you need any type of like volunteer hours, you can definitely hit me up for that because I would love to plug you into that. And that's pretty much it. Does anyone have any questions?
Are there any questions for our speakers tonight?
If you guys think of any questions or want to get involved in any way or know someone that wants to get involved, our email's super easy. It's transfers@ksu.edu, so super easy to remember. You can shoot us an email.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming tonight. Are there any additional open period speakers? All right, seeing none, we'll move into approval of the minutes. The minutes have been distributed over the past week. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Senator Wilhelm.
Move to approve minutes.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. If there are no objections, the minutes are approved. We'll now move into announcements for the week. First up, thank you to everyone who actively participated in promoting the KS Unite event and in discussing its importance during College Caucus time last week. It is critical to our mission in KSU SGA that we help build on the momentum from Tuesday, pushing for a more inclusive campus. Also, if you have a laminated KS Unite sign, it'd be great if you could return that to me because I was notified that I need to return those, so thank you in advance. Second is the Tuition Fee Strategies Committee, which Provost Tabor talked a little bit about. That started meeting for the 2018-2019 term. We will begin the fee review process for the College of Business next week, and I encourage anyone interested